SaaS Buyers Club interviews SaaS thought leaders and gets leading industry insights to help founders get their best exit and buyers to get their next best deal. I'm Omeed, and I'm a host at SaaS Buyers Club and a partner at Optimist Legal, which is a SaaS M&A law firm.
And I'm Joe. I'm your co-host here at the SaaS Buyers Club, and I'm also a partner with Omeed over at Optimist Legal.
Welcome to episode 2 of the SaaS Buyers Club. We talked about how one of the things that we're going to do on SaaS Buyers Club is we're going to do deal reviews and tear sheets and tear downs. So that's what Joe and I have planned for today's episode of SaaS Buyers Club. We're going to review a few deals for you and do some deal tear downs.
And we're going to kind of just talk about them, talk about any related M&A concepts.
Yeah, we're looking to kick things off right off the bat in a good way. So let's get started.
Okay, well, why don't you go ahead and start off? We both have some cool deals we want to talk about in the SaaS space. Why don't you start with yours?
Yeah, so the first deal I've got is actually a super recent deal. It's a company called KyckGlobal, and it was acquired by Dash Solutions on August 29th. So this is a super recent deal. Dash Solutions is a payment and engagement technology provider. It's actually out of Alabama, which I thought was super interesting. Alabama isn't really a place that I think of when I think of like Fintech SaaS companies, but
Hey man, nerds are everywhere, bro.
They're everywhere. They're everywhere. That's true. And KyckGlobal is a fintech company which offers an omni-channel payment platform where businesses can send payments using virtually any payment method. So that sounds incredibly useful to have like all of your payment systems in one place on one platform. They're actually out of Atlanta, Georgia, which is like the South sounds like it has a lot of really viable tech startups just based on these two alone.
Yeah, I've seen. I used to track the metrics a lot. It's not the West Coast, but it's definitely something.
Yeah, it's interesting to see these like kind of off the cuff places or off the beaten path, if you will, that are not the Silicons of the world, whether that be Silicon Valley or Silicon Beach or Silicon Alley, I think is what's the one in New York? I can't Silicon Street. They have a name for each one of them. I can't remember right now, but
I don't know. I almost made fun of New York for a second, so I'm just going to hold my tongue.
But yeah, so Dash Solutions acquired KyckGlobal using funds that they actually received an investment from Edison Partners in 2021 to invest in their platform. So they're actually deploying that capital that they got in 2021 from Edison Partners and investing it into just building up their platform. And the acquisition really focuses on the 4 core offerings of Dash Solutions, which are pay, rewards, incentive, and expense management. And what's interesting about this acquisition is actually the 2 companies prior to the acquisition were partners. And so Dash decided to acquire Kyck as a result of this successful partnership, which I think, the kind of tip of the day here is, for me at least, in terms of acquisitions, is you never really know who your buyer might be.
Oh, dude, that's a good one. Mm-hmm. That's a good one. It can go both ways, really. There, somebody you're partnered with as a big part of your business could turn out to be a shithead, or it could turn out to be the future of your business.
Yep.
It definitely does go both ways.
Yeah, and to keep eyes peeled, keep your eyes peeled, for those kind of synergies.
Did you see whether that acquirer had acquired any like related businesses, or was this kind of really a strategic add-on to their business? Do you have any more information there? And it's fine if you don't.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have any additional information on Dash Solutions. I do know that as mentioned, they have raised capital specifically for the purpose of building up their engagement technologies. So this acquisition is representative of the deployment of that capital. So I'm sure there are other acquisitions that both have been made and will continue to be made, because the capital was raised in 2021, so it's been 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
so
seems like no, I hear you. That seems like good inference. And also, I guess one thing it's really important to call out to SaaS founders is that, hey, about a quarter on average, though, statistics do vary, of all buyers of SaaS business are strategic buyers. They're not necessarily, and the rest of them are, private equity funds. And so it's important to keep in mind who could be a buyer of your business. It could go multiple ways. It could be somebody who wants to add on something. It could be somebody you know. You could go hunting for buyers and list your business. There's a lot of different ways that connection happens. And it's important to be open to a lot of options. You very often see SaaS founders kind of like run into one potential buyer, somehow get it stuck in their head that that's the only buyer, or that that's what they're going to do without having even marketed their business, without having understood the marketability or market interest in their business, without having sounded out other buyers, retaining an investment banker or a broker to sell your business. That's very common. I would say that falls in line with SaaS founders very often, not all the times, being engineers. And engineers not necessarily, unless it's like a multiple time SaaS founder, not necessarily, being great at what they do, but not necessarily being great at some other complex aspects to selling a SaaS business. So like just not knowing that stuff. And that's definitely one thing that, we're going to be talking more about on the podcast. That's some things I vibe off regarding that deal. And there's other stuff that comes to mind, but I'll leave it there for now. I'll throw it back to you, dude.
yeah, I think the last thing that I want to say about this deal is what stood out is the founder of Kick. His name's Ashish Bal. I hope that I'm pronouncing that name correctly, but he has a long history in the fintech SaaS space. So this is actually his fourth exit. And
That's cool.
I saw a stat the other day that said that like the average age of a SaaS founder that gets an exit is right around 40 years old. So usually like more experienced SaaS founders tend to get SaaS exits, but Ashish has had 4 exits in e-invoicing, debit routing, e-commerce, digital disbursements, and home banking. And he's exited every one of the ventures that he's ever founded. The first one was in 98.
Whoa, okay.
Yep. And American Express bought his second company called Harbor Payments in 2006. He had another company called Aculin in 2017 that was acquired by First Data, and now in 2023, his most recent venture, KyckGlobal, has been acquired by Dash. So it looks like right around the 10-year-ish mark. Every 10 years, Ashish gets an exit, but kudos to him for the acquisition. He's crushing it.
Yeah, that's cool. And one other like common statistic, though obviously it's just like a generalization, is that SaaS exits usually happen around when a business is 10 years old. That's important to note if you're a founder, just to kind of think about sort of what kind of where your business needs to have been by such stage. There's another thing that comes to mind is, oh yeah, by the way, we don't have the pricing for this acquisition we're talking about right now. It was undisclosed, so we don't have the pricing for that. And why don't we talk about the next one?
Cool. The second one, actually, I think in the next episode we're going to talk about industry trends. This one actually, I think, squarely fits that into industry trend. The second acquisition that I have is a company called Aivo, Airo. Aivo was acquired by Engageware on August 24th of this year, so just a week ago. And Aivo is actually a company based out of Buenos Aires, and they provide AI tech solutions for enterprise customer engagement. Specifically, again, we're seeing good fintech activity. They specifically focus on fintech and banking, with some telecom and retail. And yeah, so Engageware actually is a company out of Boston. Shout out to Klaviyo's IPO. That's another Boston company Klaviyo just IPO'd, and they're based out of Boston too. So Boston is getting on the map in terms of SaaS. And Engageware, who acquired Aivo, has a comprehensive suite of employee management solutions, appointment scheduling, analytics, client satisfaction tracking, which is all powered by conversational AI. So acquiring this other conversational AI company with specific focus for enterprise customer engagement in fintech and banking and some of these other kind of areas sounds like a great strategic acquisition for Engageware.
Yeah, there's a lot of those conversational AI things going around nowadays. I'll even talk about the next deal we talk about. I'll even talk about another one. Just regarding that deal, again, the pricing was undisclosed. It's always nice to know the pricing. I don't really have any follow-up questions that I'd mention. How about you? Anything else that you want to mention in relation to that deal, or do you want to go on to the next one?
Yeah, I think I do just want to highlight about how Engageware actually specifically spoke to how they're expanding their platform capabilities with a focus on the financial institution. So it seems like the intention of that acquisition was very much Aivo's connection to the financial institutions.
Okay. So it also sounds like another add-on. Again, I don't know everything about the transaction. It sounds like another add-on, and essentially what's going on there is that the business being acquired had enough technology and or customers and growth such that the buyer could really forecast a lot of, basically long-term value from the acquisition. So that's obvious from a buyer's perspective, but that information is kind of helps founders know, because sometimes founders think that it's little black box as to what is required to get an exit or to get somebody to want to buy your business. So that's why I mentioned that.
Interesting. Yeah, speak more to. I'm actually curious about the little black box. It sounds like there's a tip there waiting to emerge.
Dang, our one tip a day thing has gone into many tips a day, huh? Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? Buyers have very specific expectations and objectives. If it's a PE buyer or a strategic buyer, they're just very looking for very specific things. Talking to a PE buyer, they want a certain financial return. It's pretty straightforward. That can happen in numerous ways, yes, but that's it. And strategics, they're also expecting certain other strategic value in addition to financial return in most cases. Some other strategic value that they're going to be able to capture from adding on new technologies, product lines, markets, customer demographics and bases, et cetera, et cetera. So in that realm, a lot of the times it's 1 + 1 = 3. In other words, there's the buyer business, there's the seller business, and by combining them together, they get more value than each of them individually has. So that's a big part of that equation, kind of speaking more to the black box, I guess. I guess I want to leave it at this one tip, which is not too insightful, but it's kind of fundamental, which is that, again, from a founder's perspective, you really have to understand what would make your business attractive to what kind of buyer.
Mm.
So you really just have to know that. You shouldn't not like you're not like inventing something. You're not reinventing the wheel or anything. It's pretty basic. You should be able to figure out, talking to your advisors, what a PE buyer would want, even sounding out the market of buyers. And similarly for strategics, talk to an investment banker, see what type of strategics are there, or a broker. See what type of strategics may be interested. see what kind of deal they would put on the table. It's not rocket science.
When do you think a founder should do that?
Yeah, like my opinion on this differs from the what usually ends up, or what is the case for people who just haven't worked in M&A before. Founders is what I'm really referring to here. They should have a strong understanding of what that is. Once they've exited basically the startup phase and they're in a growth phase and they have a lot of their stuff, their ducks in a row. In other words, they're not just like getting their business running, and they're ponying up their business to be in a position to where it could be purchased, or, it's steadfast, it's steady. At such point, this could be between like 2 and 4 years out on average, but it really depends on a case-by-case scenario. At such point, they should understand what their business is worth and who would buy it. In other words, that's pretty early on. A lot of people build a business 5 years, 6 years, business starts going well, they don't even know what it's worth on the market, which is kind of absurd if you think about it. So that's, basically when the business starts getting steady, they're seeing continual growth. Say they're seeing, I'm not going to get into growth numbers, but yeah, that's the point there.
Yeah. And I hear like the summary of the tip being just like know your business, know the value, not just the number value, but know what the core value of your business is.
Or no, I'd rephrase it. Know what the market would pay for your business.
And beyond that, know why the market would pay that for your business.
Yeah, totally. And even beyond that, know what you need to do or could do to increase that value in the market in the short term, midterm, and long term. Because there might be some basic things you could do in a 1 to 2 year period to really increase the value. There may not be, There may be things. Oh, go ahead. I was going to say there may be things coming up too. Like you got some big, this is very common. You got some big enterprise deals that may close a few quarters out that'll really amp up your value. People often wait for those or have those plugged into any exit equation.
Yeah, there's an interesting question here of like, artists have a lot of trouble, or like in the early stages of an artist's journey, especially on the business side of being an artist, the struggle that they have is, who do I create the art for? Am I creating it for the audience, or am I creating it out of like a sheer love of what I'm doing? And what I hear you saying is like, hey, have your finger on the pulse of why you're doing this thing, because if you do, the exit that you're going to get is so much more lucrative if you know what makes your business more lucrative and focus on that, which may not be necessarily the same thing as, the engineer who just loves building stuff and, wants to build a really, really great product, but maybe those aspects aren't, fundamental like multipliers of the value of the business.
So I was actually just going to say that, okay, so not to cut you off there, but I was actually just going to say, as a point I want to make among others, that as a creator or, engineer or otherwise, the things you value definitely may not be the things a buyer values. In fact, it's very common in smaller acquisitions, and I say smaller, like sub 15 million, for businesses to have to go ahead and do a whole readying process before they sell. And this is super important for both buyers and sellers, because at the end of the day, the buyer needs buyers need certain things in order to buy your business. Just because your business is doing well or you think your product's great does not mean somebody's going to buy it. It's really annoying, sure, but hey, it's just a process. And so there's a lot of specific things you need to do to make sure your business is acquisition ready, and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not going to get into all that right now. That's a big topic, and we will cover that in following episodes. So there's that point. There's things you need to do. Similarly, what we just had said, those things may not be what you had thought brought value to your business. They may, in part, be such things, but also be additionally other things. And I'll move on to another point here that, when you're, when you fall in love with your business, it's kind of, I always say, be careful about the feeling of falling in love with your own poetry, because it is a phenomenon. And when you do that with your own business, you can start to lose sight again of, I used the word diluted before, you can start to lose sight of, what value your thing actually has. And so, your thing actually might have a lot of value, and you're kind of building a cool new product for 3 hard years that you did, and then at the end of those 3 years, your thing has the same value from a buyer's perspective. That can happen, and it may even have less value. So you kind of just need to be aware as to what makes it valuable from a buyer's perspective for an exit. And again, to repeat what I said earlier, what in the short, mid, and long term can contribute to both increasing and decreasing that value. There is such a thing as waiting too long before you sell your business.
Yeah, that's something that we'll be covering in future episodes too, the exit sweet spot, which is kind of Joe and I's thing that we've come up with. And the point that I'm kind of taking away, another tip, because like we said, we want to pack these podcast episodes with as much value as possible, is do you, as a founder, if you're listening to this, do you have someone who has a vision for the exit of your business and who can help advise strategy with respect to exit of the business right from the beginning?
So like your
Yeah.
CFO may be a great person to have that conversation with, but he also may not have any M&A experience. And you have to be really careful, obviously, as you may know, if you're a founder already and doing well, you have to make sure you're only relying on people who are an actual expert in the area.
I'm thinking someone on the board would be fantastic that has that vision for the exit. And I think
talking to your
Go
to your
ahead.
VC about it, like if you already have an investor who's just experienced, talking to him about it is a great place to talk about it. And if he's on your board is where I'm coming at,
Yep. Yeah. So I think the tip for me is, just have a point person who's like your exit advisor from the very beginning that can kind of help you steer towards that. And there's a whole other conversation to be had there in terms of like just orienting founders, to exits as well, which is a whole nother conversation. But let's just cap that off right there, man.
Yeah, sure. I'll bring up the next deal then.
Cool. Let's do it.
Sure. This is another one of those like conversational AI deals. We were just talking about it the other day. This just happened. I don't remember, was it like 2 weeks ago or something? Pretty recently. It was when Thomson Reuters acquired Casetext. So Thomson Reuters owns Westlaw, which is one of the biggest, let's just say, legal research SaaS businesses out there. In addition to LexisNexis, those are the two leading players, and there's other players. Yeah, Casetext was, or you could still say was or is at this point, I suppose. Casetext is a SaaS business founded around 2010. It is also a legal research tool, similar to Westlaw and LexisNexis, and to a certain extent, a lot less features than those services. Casetext recently introduced a new feature which was called Co-Counsel. What Co-Counsel was basically like not just giving you legal research, but it would prepare memos for you. It would do a lot of the things that ChatGPT is known for. It was basically a prompt interface with a conversational AI that was trained on legal research and legal briefs and memos and other related materials. And so this Co-Counsel is just a phenomenal feature. I used it a little bit. I didn't get super deep into it. And it just had these really cool feature sets. A little bit of ignorance on my part, I actually didn't see it I saw it as basically just the start of a revolution. The product just came out. Like, it wasn't perfect. It's not perfect. It's great. But it doesn't matter. So Thomson Reuters bought them for, was it 600 or 650 million?
I don't remember the total.
I think
it was
pretty
in
sure
the 600s.
I think it was 650 million.
Yeah.
We could check that, but whatever. It was 650 million, just bought it. And a huge acquisition, right? That's a huge number. Don't have the multiple off the top of my head. And so, and the big point there is conversational AI changing the legal research landscape, and big incumbents, wanting to acquire competing startups who have those features already well built out and showing improving consumer demand already, because that's what Casetext was doing. So that's that deal. Definitely is a landmark on the trends of conversational AI acquisitions, legal software, legal software has been a big deal for the last several years. But frankly, several years ago, it was so nascent and like so much was just kind of beginning to happen that it wasn't too, like, comparing Casetext itself alone compared to several years ago. A lot of the legal software out there are showcases a difference or a dichotomy of two completely different universes. So Casetext, phenomenal product with the conversational AI. Several years ago was very much so just like vision, and there was a lot of software out there, sure, but you know what I'm saying. And so that's a really interesting, those are two really interesting trends that deal captures on. So that's that transaction. That's a big deal in the SaaS space. This is our first episode we're doing about deal recaps. Most of our episodes are going to be interviews of SaaS leaders. So in the future, we'll continue to talk more and in different ways about these deals. Do you have anything you want to talk about regarding that deal, Omeed, or should we move on to the next one? And should we do one or two more deals? I have one more deal, I'd talk about, and I think you have one more on your side. Do you want to do two more, and then that's what we're going to do for this episode?
I think so. I think that's the case, and to the point about the case text acquisition. I think we're going to see a whole lot more. I think legal is what I've been hearing about the industry in general, like not just in the SaaS side, but because of how many small law firms there are, legal as an industry in general is ripe for consolidation. That's where we're at.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I felt that way for a while, but not for the same reasons as you're mentioning now. Just generally, kind of, I've thought about that for several years. And just now, yeah, obviously, so where I'm really coming from, so second point, where I'm really coming from is I'm like, no, don't change. I'm just fine with where it is. But the impending, the inevitable nature of change, brings us to this point. And there are these services. There are services like Do Not Pay, which have big vision, but aren't. I'm just gonna say aren't transforming yet. They are, but you know what I mean. Like they're trying. They're going to, but I don't know. Let me put it this way. Do Not Pay, as you may know, is another SaaS legal services business. And they have a big vision. What I'm really trying to say here is their current performance is not satisfying their vision. They really want to do it all and do all the different legal services under one umbrella. And they may ultimately achieve that vision. The day's not today, and very much so do I see the legal area, due to regulatory issues, being one area in which SaaS change will come more slowly. How slowly, I'm not saying, but more slowly than in other markets. So yeah, legal SaaS is definitely intriguing. And you don't even need to be a lawyer, right? The laws very specifically on that. I could kind of jumble my memory for a moment, but you don't necessarily even need to be a lawyer to own. That's a law. Oh, that's about law firms, and then legal SaaS businesses. No, you do not necessarily need to be a lawyer.
Sure. For a SaaS business, you definitely don't need to be a lawyer. But there is an interesting question around companies like Do Not Pay, for example, but then again, there's like, LegalZoom, the owner of LegalZoom doesn't have to necessarily be a lawyer.
What I guess I was saying there is, as a SaaS buyer, like you can gain, oh gosh, the word slipped my mind, but basically you can get exposure to the legal market in a completely different way today if you're buying a legal SaaS business than you could have 15 years ago with a business such as LegalZoom. Whereas now and in the coming few decades, or say 5 to 10 years, as a legal SaaS buyer, you can gain completely different exposure to the legal marketplace. And there's definitely going to be a lot of big winners in the space.
Yeah, I mean, the legal industry is going through fundamental changes through and through, you know, especially with a lot of jurisdictions considering non-attorney ownership now. We definitely are going to see a lot of transformation in the space, both on the SaaS side as well as like generally within the industry itself too. So super interesting to take a look at. And we'll definitely have some guests in the future that will be able to speak more to this as well.
Yeah, and just kind of a clarification on your point about non-legal ownership there, and that was in regards to law firms and not SaaS businesses. And the general rule is that obviously a non-lawyer can own a SaaS software business that gives legal services. And so yeah, it's really interesting. I guess for me, it's particularly interesting because I've made fun of SaaS legal startups for a really long time. Like it's not like I didn't believe in them or anything. I just made fun of them, you know. And to see it now, just like, especially with the trend of AI, etc., just totally changing everything. It's so intriguing. ChatGPT, I'll do a quick one sentence plug on ChatGPT 4 in relation to legal. General rule, super great for like commercial stuff, non-reliable for litigation. Super great at like helping you like give you a rev on a memo or something, but that's kind of that's it. So we could move on to the next deal to talk about now.
Joe loves ChatGPT, by the way.
Dude, I love ChatGPT. It's gonna be my best friend, dude. You know what I did? I posted this on my LinkedIn. One of the first things I did was I got a Chrome extension that made it sound like Iron Man's. Oh, what's the guy's name? What's Iron Man's AI's name?
Jarvis.
Dude, I got a Chrome extension, yeah, that made ChatGPT talk to me and sound like Jarvis. It's the first thing I did. And it's so cool. I would talk to it, and then it would talk back to me like Jarvis. It's not the smoothest experience right now. However, I'm waiting until. So what I'm waiting for the next step is when I can just have ChatGPT on my phone, talk to it on because the ChatGPT app experience UX, the user experience, is not super fluid. I'm waiting to the point where I can just say, "Hey Jarvis," and it's like, "Yo Joe, what do you need?" And I'm like, "Give me this market data," and it just talks back to me. It's not at that level of integration right now. It's still like it's very, you could say clunky, but it's not smooth.
Awesome,
Dude,
man.
at that point in time, I'm gonna be living the dream. I'm gonna have so much fun with it.
Then you'll become the real Iron Man.
Dude, we all want to be Iron Man, man.
You got another deal for us, Joe?
Yeah, yeah, I'll talk about one in brief. So this is an area I'm really interested in because it's so transformational. And this has to do with AI music software. And in specific, this deal was Primephonic. Yeah, I'm remembering the name correctly. I'm 99% sure, but we'll go back and check to make sure I wasn't. Primephonic was acquired. It's a classical streaming service, music streaming service. And they were acquired by Apple as part of its entire they did that big push into Apple Music. They basically saw the opportunity and they decided to spend money and to grow it out as a big offering. And I kind of doing a slight dig at Apple about that because it's kind of just like tag along level. Yeah, but on the other hand, hey, it is what it is. So they did that big acquisition. And right now, so that's a streaming service acquisition that occurred in 2021, obviously with all Apple acquisitions, pricing undisclosed. It's pretty obvious why they did it. They're trying to tack on a big consumer base, classical music streaming subscribers, and they're just trying to plug them into Apple Music like they did with so many other acquisitions and/or campaigns, marketing campaigns. And so that's that's the purpose of the acquisition there. Not getting into any numbers or anything of subscribers, etc., of the business acquired. More intriguingly for me, though, is what's going on right now. Is we're seeing this huge burst in AI music software businesses, and where I want to pivot this conversation on and throw it back to you with, Omeed, is this recent, we talked about it a little bit before, this recent Joe Rogan episode with that famous rapper. Oh my gosh, I listen to so little modern music. I'm like totally gonna forget the rapper's name. He's Post Malone. He's a cool guy. I think Post Malone's cool. He lives in Utah, I'm pretty sure. So it's up nearest where I'm about's at. And so Post Malone was on Joe Rogan basically a week or two ago. And one of the things Post Malone said, which is really cool to hear it right out of like a peak professional's mouth on the subject of SaaS AI, he said that it's his opinion and his producer's opinion. Don't remember his producer's name, but also, super talented, right? And super expert in the industry. And it's their opinion that the music landscape as we know it from a product perspective is going to completely change. Right now is a transformational point to get in on and have exposure to music products and consumption. Currently, we're in the streaming world. But after AI hits, and this is what another thing Post Malone said about that was that people are going to have the ability to have music generated on the fly with the voices of the people they like the most, talking about things that are directly happening in their lives, like the AI will know about what they're going through, or they could say like what they're going through. It'll have a vibe that directly matches with what they're feeling. And this, it basically, the concept of us buying songs or soundtracks or CDs and albums is soon to be archaic. And it's going to, in his opinion, and I agree with this opinion, it's going to completely change such that people are consuming AI music as a service. And right now, there's a lot of these businesses being built, and buyers really need to vet these businesses for their technical capabilities and buy them early before they become too valuable. That's my opinion. Buy them early, especially if you already have strategic exposure to potential consumer bases, and or otherwise just keep a hot nose or keep an eye on those businesses as we're seeing them fundamentally change the music industry right before our very eyes.
Interesting. Yeah. So curious. I want to hear some of that music. I want to hear that AI classical music.
You haven't? Wait, no, that classical music wasn't itself AI, but have you not heard any AI generated music yet?
I have heard some AI generated music, but not the AI generated classical music.
Oh, no. Okay. No, I wasn't referring to that specifically as a thing. Okay. Yeah. Some AI music I have heard. I've heard like several soundtracks. I'm not like a super audiophile, so I haven't like heard 1,000 of them. But the ones I have heard will blow your freaking mind away. You'll be like, oh, things are changing. Like, it's also really intriguing from a legal perspective. Like, okay, how are these businesses going to have moats around other audio AI businesses? Just like, you know what I'm saying? Like, say you were to buy such a business or build such a business. Again, I'm talking about audio AI consumer business. What is your IP moat, or what is the general moat protecting your product from somebody else doing something similar? Sure, there's going to be your source code and your actual, your actual development on the back end. But from an IP perspective, what's your moat? Generally, like, what are your other moats? It's a really interesting question. I haven't thought through that myself. Like, it's definitely a big debate currently in the generative AI businesses is like, what rights they themselves are allowed to have. There was that recent landmark ruling that.
I was going to say that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you say. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, it was just the court case that said that AI, I believe it was like AI
Copyright.
Artist material, can't be protected. Like that's what it, like the court.
And it was copyrights, right? Which is directly applicable to music.
Yeah, and art.
Yeah. So it was that.
A big blow. That's a big blow, man.
Dude, that was like for non-lawyers out there, that was literally like a full broadside of cannons. But you talk about and I'm not going to get into this, but as everybody talks about for the AI generative art businesses, it is a big deal because that is like literally the product. So that's that. That's that subject. That's that deal. Why don't I throw it back to you to talk about the last deal for today, and why don't we close it out with that deal?
Yep. Thanks, Joe. So the last deal that we'll be reviewing is another deal that happened on August 24th. So, within the last week, the Netherlands-based Main Capital Partners sold a majority stake in Assessio to the private equity firm Pollen Street Capital. So Pollen Street acquired a majority stake in Assessio. And Assessio is actually a super interesting company because they were founded in 1954 and they weren't founded as a SaaS company. They originally were a behavioral insight recruitment consulting company.
Okay, could you break that down a little bit for me? So just to be clear, behavioral insight on people being recruited?
Yeah, that's right. So they provided behavioral insights consulting to companies in furtherance of recruiting. So
Got it.
yeah, they would do a lot. They would do a lot of the assessments and things like that. And then when Main Capital Partners acquired the majority stake in Assessio, and I'm not 100% sure when they acquired that stake, how long ago, but they helped them transform from a consulting company to a SaaS technology company. And so Main Capital Partners, through this majority stake, kind of steered Assessio into the SaaS space. And because of their like deep scientific heritage in these kind of behavioral insights with respect to recruiting, they were able to apply that to the SaaS technology platform and grow to become one of the leading SaaS technologies and owning a significant market share in Sweden, Norway, Netherlands, and Denmark, where they were competing with these more traditional providers of tests and talent management. And actually, they've been they have, through the guidance of Main Capital Partners, acquired a number of other companies that led to their growth. So Main Capital Partners came in, they steered the ship away from a consultancy to a SaaS technology platform. They helped them undergo a number of acquisitions of other strategic acquisitions, essentially, that helped them further grow. And then Main Capital Partners went and sold their majority stake to Pollen Street Capital. And Pollen Street Capital is known for being a private equity firm that's focused on the technology and SaaS space. So it sounds like Main Capital, took them to kind of a tipping point, recognized that there was an opportunity for someone who may focus more on the SaaS space to take them to the next level, and sold that majority stake to Pollen Street Capital. And Pollen is going to step into the shoes of Main Capital and take them to that next level by focusing on the technology platform and giving them a bigger footprint in Europe. So an interesting acquisition.
Okay. No, that's really cool. Okay, no, I like that too. Why don't we go ahead and with that, why don't we go ahead and close out? We've talked a lot. We've covered several deals. We've talked about some more, we've done some little deep dives on some specific issues. So I think we did, achieve our goal here today of giving some valuable content to people. The next episode we're going to be talking about some SaaS industry trends, SaaS M&A industry trends, and SaaS generally. And then after that, we're going to be doing a lot of interviews of SaaS experts. And that means acquirers, sellers, investors, etc. Before closing out this podcast, I would say make sure to go ahead and subscribe to our channel. If you have any comments, leave them in the comments. If you want to reach out to us, you can reach out to us at optimistlegal.com. And with that, Omeed, is there anything else you'd like to say to close us out today?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Join us for the next episode where we're going to be reviewing industry trends. and it's to the moon from here, where we're just gonna, as Joe mentioned, we're gonna interview founders, investors, private equity, investment bankers, and just have really exciting conversations. A lot to look forward to, and thanks for joining us on the journey. See you next week.
Thanks, guys.